we need to have a moment of silence. For nearly a decade, they stood on podiums lecturing China about human rights, screaming about de-risking, and banning Huawei like they were saving the world. But the second their economies wobbled and Trump started eating his allies alive, look at them now. 9 major Western leaders, all visiting Beijing within 3 months, after some of them hadn't set foot there in over a decade. These leaders didn't just buy a plane ticket, they had to pass an entrance exam. It was printed on the back of their visa applications, like those trivia games on a cereal box. Except if you fail, you don't get to visit. Let's run through the questions ourselves. Question 1. When visiting China, which specific policy are you required to respect? A. One panda policy. B. One child policy. C. One China policy. And D. One dragon policy. Question 2. Based on your answer to question 1, which statement about Taiwan is incorrect? A. It's an island off the southeast coast of China. B. It's basically Thailand with better bubble tea. C. It's a Chinese province that has not yet been reunified. And D. Its official language is Mandarin Chinese. Question 3. If you don't know the answers to the first 2 questions, what do you do? A. Keep your mouth shut and pretend you know. B. Bring up the questions in front of President Xi on live TV. C. Hold a press conference at home to discuss these topics. And D. Send a government envoy to Taiwan to investigate. Most leaders got these right. They checked the boxes, boarded the plane, and got their meetings. But Germany's foreign minister, Johann Wadephul, he flunked. He either picked Thailand for question 2, or he chose hold a press conference for question 3. Either way, his first trip got cancelled in October. He had to come back in December on a short leash, strictly reading from the script, just to earn permission for his boss to visit later. So what triggered this sudden rush to Beijing? Let's rewind to October 2025. Trump showed up at the APEC summit in Busan with his tariff threats. China showed up with a bazooka made of dirt, rare earth dirt, the 90% monopoly weapon that could shut down American defense contractors and auto plants overnight. I covered the full story of how that meeting went down in another video, but here's what matters. Trump blinked. He got his truce and his rare earth supply, declared the meeting a 12 out of 10 success, and posted about the G2 on Truth Social, acknowledging China as an equal power. If the guy who started the trade war just raised the white flag, what chance do smaller countries have? That's when the scramble began. Chinese state media didn't mince words. They described Western leaders as scrambling to visit Beijing. The visual told the story. 9+ major leaders in 3 months after years of boycotts and diplomatic freezes. But here's what makes this fascinating. This isn't diplomacy anymore. This is a high-pressure job interview with the world's biggest customer, supplier, and creditor. And like any serious company, Beijing doesn't treat all candidates equally. There's a grading system. There are good students, mediocre ones, and those on probation. Let's start with Class A, the ones who got the corner office treatment. Canada's Mark Carney walked into Beijing right after Trump called him a governor and suggested Canada become the 51st state. He walked out with massive canola orders placed immediately and called the negotiations predictable, which is basically the highest compliment you can give in a world where Trump changes global policy with a 3 a.m. tweet. Keir Starmer brought 60 CEOs from HSBC to AstraZeneca and approved the Chinese embassy expansion in London before he even arrived as a show of respect. The payoff? $15 billion that AstraZeneca committed to invest into China to secure its future there, while economic dialogues that were frozen for 8 years suddenly thawed. He prioritized the City of London over Washington's hawkishness, and he got the access he needed. Then there were the ones who just did the math. South Korea's Lee Jae-myung brought 400 people and secured a $48.9 billion currency swap renewal. That isn't just a deal, it's the liquidity they need to survive. Finland and Ireland showed up too, prioritizing economic stability and getting the signatures they needed to weather the storm. Then you have the ones who showed up but went home mostly empty-handed. Germany's Johann Wadephul, remember him? The guy who failed the entrance exam? He came back in December on a short leash, didn't even get a meeting with Xi, and admitted he was just there to plan his boss's visit later. France's Macron wanted structural changes to trade deficits. His speeches about European strategic autonomy sound great, but they know he can't actually deliver Europe as a unified bloc. He got a tea ceremony, cultural exchange promises, and maybe a panda loan renewal. Macron left Beijing with exactly 12 cooperation agreements that didn't disclose a single dollar figure. And then there's Class F, the ones who got left on red. Japan's Sanai Takaichi invoked the survival threat clause on Taiwan, basically threatening war, then desperately requested a meeting to explain herself. The result? Left on red. No meeting, no acknowledgement, the door stays locked until she learns some manners. Here's the quiet part they only admit at Davos. Mark Carney gave a speech saying middle powers must band together in a new world order. What he meant was, we can't survive Trump's America alone anymore. The leaders aren't flocking to China because they've suddenly fallen in love with the Communist Party. They're flocking because Trump is running a protectionist racket. He slapped 145% tariffs on China, 25% on allies, then threatened 100% tariffs on Canada for signing trade deals with China. He's threatening to annex Greenland, control the Panama Canal, and literally kidnapped Venezuela's president. He abandoned the WHO, the Paris Accord, and a total of 66 international organizations overnight. When your supposed ally is treating you like a hostile takeover target, you start looking for new friends. And here's why Beijing is winning the interview process. Here's what these leaders discovered. China delivers. Carney's canola orders were placed immediately. No conditions, no 3 a.m. tweet reversals. They also recognized China is unstoppable. In 2025, China ran a $1.2 trillion trade surplus with 5% GDP growth and roughly 30% of global manufacturing output. And while Trump stands at Davos lying about China having no wind farms, the reality is embarrassing. In 2025 alone, China added 434 gigawatts of solar and wind. That's not just more than the US, that is more than the rest of the world combined. They are using that power to fuel a manufacturing beast that's on track to produce 100,000 humanoid robots this year. And in AI, DeepSeek, Alibaba, and Moonshot just proved their open-source AI can beat America's closed models, which explains why Jensen Huang predicts China will win the AI race by 2027. So here we are. The leaders sit down in Beijing and China sets the terms. The vibe isn't, either you're with us or against us. It's, here are the projects, here are the numbers, here are the red lines. Do you want in or not? Simple and fair, isn't it? To understand China's mindset, you just need to hear one quote from their former ambassador to France. When a reporter asked him if he feels satisfaction watching the West decline, he didn't cheer or gloat. He gave the coldest answer possible. I observe it with a great deal of indifference. Indifference. That's the attitude. While the West is obsessed with stopping China, China is only obsessed with its own roadmap. They treat American hostility like background noise. Annoying, sure, but not something that stops the factory line. It simply moves on. It's up to the West to catch up.
I think I'm right in saying that Donald Trump is expected to visit himself.
And here comes the most absurd part of this entire story. The guy who started the trade war, who told everyone China was the enemy, who pushed allies to decouple, Donald Trump himself is now planning 4 separate meetings with Xi Jinping in 2026. 4 meetings, more than any other world leader. April in Beijing, summer in Washington or Mar-a-Lago, November at APEC in Shenzhen, December at the G20 in Miami. 4 meetings with the man he spent years calling a threat. And when asked about it, Trump called Xi an amazing guy and said their relationship is excellent. So let me get this straight. Trump lectured the world about the China threat, threatened 145% tariffs, and pushed his allies into this mess. And now he's the one scrambling to Beijing, rolling out the red carpet at Mar-a-Lago, and calling Xi amazing. The architect of the trade war just became China's most frequent visitor. If that's not the ultimate hypocrisy, I don't know what is. Let me know in the comments. Which leader surprised you most? The ones who got the deals or the ones who went home empty-handed? And do you think Japan's Takaichi will ever get her meeting? See you in the next one.